The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. First on our hazardous weather graphic, winter weather advisories are out here from the AKwx Valley, west-northwest, across the Kobuk Valley, including Ambler, of course, Bettles, into the Noatak Valley, western Brooks Range for gusty winds gusting 25 to 35 miles an hour, some higher gusts, especially over the higher elevations, resulting in reduced visibilities and blowing snow. That condition becomes more severe out here along the western Arctic coast with winds gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour. Visibilities at times will be reduced to a quarter mile or less. And that warning is out through 3 p.m. Monday, and these advisories are also out through 3 p.m. Monday afternoon. Otherwise, not much going on, or nothing else going on, warning, advisory, or watch level here over the remainder of the state. And for the satellite imagery, we've had a system here moving out of the southeast coast, trough lifting northward, kept it unsettled and damped it over the northern panhandle. Back along the North Gulf Coast, weakening frontal boundary there, another weakening low coming up toward Kodiak Island, and then that old frontal boundary here across the southwest interior, hanging together a little bit better up toward St. Lawrence Island into Russia, but you can see breaking up, becoming diffuse with some breaks in the cloud cover here showing up this afternoon. So kind of a more hit and miss area of the precipitation out there. Nothing too terribly heavy. Even more breaks out here to the west from the Pribilofs on down toward the eastern Aleutians. And then farther out to the west, got low pressure churning out over the western Bering Sea, slowly edging its way eastward. And then a break here, kind of shimmy AKwx right on the southern edge of the rain and snow showers and gusty winds associated with this low now. Should be moving into the break zone here this evening, or Saturday evening, ahead of the next big storm coming up. They'll bring storm force winds in the Aleutians Sunday. To see the cloud shield, outer cirrus shield there associated with that. And rolling that through again, not too bad up here over the west central interior areas with the snow and blowing snow up there over the western Arctic coast and gusty winds over portions of the interior. On the chart today, there's the center of that low, 964 millibars. One trough here swinging eastward, bringing some showers, little enhanced showers there in toward the eastern Aleutian areas there from the central Aleutians, and then numerous rain and snow showers extending back along with some gusty winds all the way to Shimia. And this weakening frontal boundary here, actually the precipitation not as impressive as what I have drawn here. Again, the really breaking up this afternoon along that portion of the front. It looked like over the Yukon Delta. But there was rain or snow, or just showers here across Bristol Bay up into the interior. Southward, Kodiak Island, along the North Gulf Coast, very weak front now here in this area, keeping it wet. Occasional rain across all of the panhandle there. Wind's not all that bad. Some flurries, Northway, maybe Tok, and over into Canada there. And then also maybe a couple scattered flurries. Otherwise, that's it for the interior areas here. Not too bad of a day. Temperatures, well, of course, below freezing. And then the gusty winds back here up over the western Arctic coast that extend down into the west central interior. Again, the AKwx Valley, Kobuk Valley areas as that tight gradient relaxes as you come southeast, and in the end, really not much wind going on in the Tanana Valley at all the way down to south central Alaska. And forecast for tonight, again, that blizzard warning continues. Western Arctic coast, otherwise not too bad. Variable clouds, mostly clear conditions. A few lower clouds possible here, valleys in the interior, but nothing too widespread, causing any widespread IFR or anything like that. And this front will continue to slowly dissolve along the North Gulf Coast, and precipitation will also diminish with it. So rain and snow showers becoming more intermittent with time and starting to dry out there over the panhandle. So there's a chance of rain in the south, and this low center, very slow moving, keeps unsettled conditions there for Kodiak Island. Scattered snow showers now along the remainder of that boundary here across the southwest interior, and another trough rotating around the main low there, slowly lifting northward with the trough axis swinging northeastward here. Probably will bring some snow showers into the Pribilofs tonight, rain and snow showers in over the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula. Don't look for anything significant in the way of amounts. Breaking out, break here, as I mentioned, coming in across the Aleutians from Shimei all the way to Adak and Atka. Lighter winds, look for some clearing. and calmer conditions ahead of the next 958 millibar low. That's still the center off the map there, but the front just catching the southwest corner. And we'll see tomorrow their 954 center just coming onto the chart there, and pretty fierce front and pressure gradient with that. So again, storm warnings are out for the Aleutians, along with rain, possibly mixed precipitation farther out west. And that break advances up, looking pretty good tomorrow for the Pribilofs on down to the Fox Islands. And this trough here holding together the remainder of that front pretty good, although precipitation-wise nothing significant to speak of, but lots of clouds, scattered showers or areas of really light snow here from northern Bristol Bay back up across the Seward Peninsula into the strait there. This one even weaker, approaching the southwest coast. And the blizzard warning continues the western Arctic coast, winter weather advisory over the northwest interior. Otherwise, fair, pretty chilly morning, or actually afternoon highs. It won't be all that high. Some areas forecast to be only 20 below for the high temperatures tomorrow. Some of that colder air comes down from the northeast there. And look for chance of snow over the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, scattered rain and snow showers on the North Gulf Coast, with the Panhandle continuing to go into a drying trend. This low center tracking over toward the Queen Charlotte Islands. Just a risk of some moisture over the extreme southern areas down toward Dixon Entrance there, and rain and snow showers out over the Gulf of Alaska. And then finally that low exits the area here, actually becomes this trough, the remainder of that trough out to the west. So still variably cloudy, maybe a few scattered rain and snow showers, dry and cold over the interior. Picking up those winds now along the Alaska Range, Delta Junction, for example. Probably see those easterly winds on the increase here as strong high pressure builds into the Northwest Territories, but dry and clear right down to Prince William Sound, south central Alaska. Panhandle, a dry day now, chillier, especially up there to the north with that thrust of Arctic air coming down again out of the Northwest Territories and blowing through Lynn Canal and the channeled areas here, the northern Panhandle. Look for significant increase in those winds. Otherwise, not too bad over the Gulf of Alaska, much lighter winds. And the storm system out here, 951 millibars, moves to just north, or very near to AKwx, front extending out, gales with this front as it pushes into the Pribilofs and the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula there during the day on Monday. And looking at the low temperatures for tonight, generally around 10 below or 5 to 10 below for the Arctic coast to 15 to 20 below over the North Slope. Lows tonight here for the low temperatures will be in the minus teens to maybe minus 20 to possibly as low as 11 below toward Northway. And then in the teens here, south central Alaska, 20 southern Cook Inlet, mid-30s staying above freezing Kodiak State Airport, about that same pattern out over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea areas. And then for the southeast coast, lows ranging from the mid to upper 30s across the entire area there, lower 30s for the North Gulf Coast right along the coastline. Otherwise, Prince William Sound, that's Valdez, I believe, with a low forecast at about 27, while Gulkana, Copper River Basin, falling just a shade below zero there, McGrath at 2. And for the highs tomorrow, again, colder air coming in, so looks like in the minus teens about sums it up here for the eastern interior, to near zero for the Copper River Basin, really not warming much tomorrow from your overnight low or your morning low, and of course low below zero for the Arctic coast, and 20s for the most part here out over the southwest interior, lower 30s there, say at Naknek, upper 30s to near 40s, you head down the peninsula. Lower 40s there, not too bad for the Unalaska area. Pribilofs upper 30s, near freezing for Savunga. And then, of course, the storm force winds and rain, temperatures near 40 out over the Aleutians. And moving on to Monday morning, low temperatures here, down some areas 20, 25 below over the Yukon Flats, minus 20 down to the north side of the Alaska Range. Copper River Basin, definitely areas will be below zero. Teens, south central Alaska, though, mid-20s along the North Gulf Coast, and lower 30s for the Kodiak Island area. Lower to mid-20s, Bristol Bay, teens for the deltas, and lower to mid-30s for the Alaska Peninsula. And that'll extend out to about AKwx, and then you fall into the lower 30s toward Shimia. Lower to mid-30s there for the Pribilofs, upper 20s, really not too bad there for St. Lawrence Island. Even Seward Peninsula in the teens and near 20. That's not too bad either. The colder air off to the east here, again for the Monday morning lows. So looking at the Monday afternoon highs, near zero or a little above. Eastern interior, of course, coldest temperatures here contrasted from east to west to upper 20s to lower 30s there for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait. North slope Arctic coast staying below zero the entire day. Near 20 for Kotzebue and lower 30s here over the southwest interior and 35 to 40 for the Panhandle. Moving into flying weather here, the first graphic showing IFR, quite a swath here from near Kachemak Bay, the east side there, Lake Iliamna, all the way back out towards St. Lawrence Island, and then from Nunivak Island and much of the Bering, pretty much marginal. Some VFR showing up there on Unalaska and the Alaska Peninsula. Spotty areas of marginal VFR over the central eastern interior, and IFR up along the Arctic coast and the southeast coast, marginal with IFR here over toward the eastern border, on up toward northern Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, and along the coast range here, the eastern North Gulf Coast. For tomorrow afternoon, IFR in the north, marginal VFR in the south there for the southeast coast. Marginal VFR up across the Copper River Basin, right up and maybe on the north side of the Alaska Range even, and around the White Mountains there. Big area IFR still out here over the southwest interior, right up to and maybe just a little past the Alaska Range. And then IFR up along the Arctic coast and IFR out over the western Aleutians there on the move northward here. Much more widespread for Monday morning out that way, all the way across, of course, Atka, all the way to Nikulski. Even on Alaska, I could see some IFR there. IFR Alaska Peninsula still holding over the southwest interior back across St. Lawrence Island. Pretty good VFR from Koyukuk, Kobuk, Upper Yukon valleys northward until you get to the Arctic coast. You run into some IFR there on the central and east side. Marginal VFR, Gulf of Alaska, hanging on to the Copper River Basin here, and up along much of the Alaska Range for Monday morning, a little bit into the Tanana Valley there, but not too much, and then spotty areas IFR for the Panhandle. And moving on to Monday afternoon, improving here, definitely, VFR breaking out central, northern, southeast coast, including Yakutat. But Cape Yakataga to possibly Cordova, marginal VFR, and marginal VFR over the southern southeast coast. Kodiak Island, marginal. Southern Kenai Peninsula, marginal VFR. Prince William Sound looks pretty good. VFR, all of the interior VFR. We've got some IFR, though, here along the Kilburg-Auckland mountain areas and a little bit of marginal stuff over the Yukon Delta, mostly along the coast here. IFR near and just south of St. Lawrence Island, and a big area IFR out here for the western Aleutians, western southwest Bering Sea. And for passes, starting out with Adigan, VFR tomorrow looks pretty good also for Anatuvik. VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill. Marginal VFR, call at this point, possible IFR there in the western entrance. And then for rainy, though, I think it'll be VFR, optimistically be clouds around, but the VFR variety. And for windy VFR, Isabel and Mentasta both look a little marginal at this point, while Tanita starting out VFR, possibly becoming marginal on this eastern entrance, depending on how much moisture works up from the southeast there up toward that area. And then for Portage, IFR eastern entrance, otherwise marginal. Gradual improvement, though, throughout the day, but holding on to the IFR, at least on the eastern entrance at this point. And for Chilkoot and White, both IFR. Freezing levels, not much out here at the surface, though, way up there to the Russian coast, and then back down across Nunivak Island into Bristol Bay, hugging the North Gulf Coast here and eastern Panhandle. Milder air, 2,000 feet in over the southern southeast coast, Prince of Wales Island, Dixon Entrance, 4,000 feet just south of the Queen Charlottes. And for icing, a little bit possibly a threat here coming into the southern southeast coast. Most of it staying to the south or to the southeast, above 4,000 feet. Isolated, moderate, very light, and isolated stuff here, Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island along this old frontal boundary here that's weakening, but still has some moisture in this area, above about 5,000 feet. A very isolated, moderate, if any at all. Better chance out here with that stronger system pushing into the central Aleutians there. Could be some considerable moderate rime icing out there, above about 6,000 feet. And the jet stream here, split flow right along the southwest coast, high upper center there over the northern Panhandle. And this jet well south of the Panhandle, 9,000 feet. Pretty much easterly flow here over the interior, pretty light, 5 knots, southern Alaska, 25 just catching the southern southeast coast, southeast 40 to 50 there for the Aleutians, and even stronger, big storm there just south of the Aleutians, 65 knot winds there, lighter over the interior, turbulence shaping up like this with that, moderate chop, pretty common here, or pretty widespread out over the Aleutians, also up here in the northwest coastal areas and St. Lawrence Island.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the earth, explosion type things, coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside of you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get 1 hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall. where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you get to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Of course, Norton Sound iced in, and the entire edge here along the west coast continuing to slowly advance out to the west with the east-northeast winds. And same thing in the Bering Strait here, slowly filling in more and more. And over northern Cook Inlet, continuing to see a gradual increase in the sea ice there. And moving on to marine forecasts here, 10 to 15 knot northerlies in the forecast for the southern southeast coast, north to northwest, just 10 knots on the north coast, but seas 12 feet there, so small craft advisories across the entire zone, and north 10, light winds for Lynn Canal, light winds also for Stevens Passage, and north 15 for Clarence Strait. Then on Monday, big increase in those winds there, especially northern Lynn Canal, north 40, higher gusts, 8-foot seas and gales even for Stevens Passage out of the north, 35 knots, north 15 for the Clarence Strait area, north to northeast 15 on the south coast, and east 20 increasing to 25 up along the north coast with 10 to 11-foot seas. Prince William Sound northeast at 10, same thing for the North Gulf Coast, western North Gulf Coast southeast to 15, northwest 20 there for the Barrens, so kind of a trough or a weak low right in this area, and northwest 15 for Kachemak Bay, southern Cook Inlet north at 15. And then for Monday, light northeast winds continue there for northern Cook Inlet at 10 knots, north 20 knots south of the Forelands, 5-foot seas, northeast 20, Kachemak Bay. Light winds here, Barrens, North Gulf Coast, except 15 out of the northeast there. Here on the eastern coast, light winds continue, Prince William Sound. And for Kodiak Island, westerlies 15 knots tomorrow, seas 13 feet here on the Pacific side, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west 25 knots, 14-foot seas, otherwise southwest 15 for the peninsula and Bristol Bay. And for the upcoming day on Monday, gales east-southeast 40 knots come into the Alaska Peninsula with 18-foot seas here on the Pacific side, otherwise 12 feet. East winds increasing to 30 knots for Bristol Bay, southeast 30 knots Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and then east side of Kodiak 20, Shelikof Strait even lighter east of 15. And for the Aleutians, tomorrow south to southwest 20 to 25 knots there across Unalaska Island, otherwise storm warnings coming in with that next big storm. Full gales out west, storms here from about Kiska-Ramchitka Island to 55 knots south of Adak and Atka. Seas building up to about 20 feet or so, and gales on the increase there toward Nikolsky, 35 to 40 knots out of the southeast. And then for Monday, southeast 45 knots now for Unalaska Island, and gales across all of the eastern Aleutians, continuing gale force winds coming down to gale force for the central Aleutians. Generally south at about 40 knots, 35 to 40, northwest 30, and then back up to storms out of the northwest there in the backside of that low center with the tighter gradient, 25-foot seas to go along with it. And for the southwest coast, south to southeast winds, 20 knots tomorrow, 7 to 8-foot seas, southwest 20 for the Pribilofs, and south 25 knots, 14-foot seas for St. Matthew Island, southeast 25 for St. Lawrence Island, those seas up to 10 feet. And then for Monday, east, 40 knots here all along the southwest coast, increasing to 45 knots out of the east for the St. Matthew Island area, as well as the Pribilofs. East 45 seas building toward 20 feet, 30-knot winds for St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east-northeast 20 tomorrow, 25-knot brisk wind advisories for the central coast. Gales here for the west side all the way down to Cape Thompson. Brisk wind advisories Cape Thompson to the Bering Strait. And then on the Monday outlook, 30-knot winds out of the east for the entire stretch of the Arctic coast, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, southeast 25, and then back to 30 knots to Cape Thompson to the Bering Strait. For tonight, again, blizzard warning western Arctic coast out through Monday afternoon at this point. Same thing with the weather advisory, Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley, and Noatak Valley areas. Otherwise, weakening front continues to weaken and produce less in the way of precipitation here, but it'll be pretty cloudy there. Rain and snow showers, Kodiak with that lingering weak low. Another weak front here dissipating but hanging up along the North Gulf Coast, weakening over the Panhandle. And then the big storm comes in tomorrow with the storm force winds there and rain, of course, with it spreading slowly eastward and northward. A couple of troughs keep it unsettled in the west here. Not too bad over the interior, a little colder up here over the northeast interior on down into the Copper River Basin. Some rain and snow showers lingering over the North Gulf Coast and maybe the Panhandle, but the next day definitely drier, big increase in those northerly winds, colder temperatures spilling down out of Canada there into the northern southeast coast. Fair, dry, and cool over the interior of Alaska, and wind, gale force winds, Pribilofs down to the Alaska Peninsula coming in with that front with a strong center back out toward Adak. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
From as early as I can remember, I wanted to swallow the world whole. I just thought I would have more time.
I feel like my brain is misfiring.
I saw every kind of specialist.